pick. The Texans taking Deshaun Watson with number 25, and the Saints taking Patrick Mahomes with the 32nd pick. Max, what team most needs to draft a quarterback right now?
The team that most needs to draft it is the Texans. But the problem is this draft doesn't have any plug-and-play quarterbacks.
Right.
So the Texans really needed to acquire someone through free agency or a trade, and they failed to do it. Deshaun Watson, I love at 12 to Cleveland because I see him as 2 or 3 years holding the clipboard behind someone good, and then you have a franchise quarterback and a winner who didn't have to take a beating the first couple of years. So I love the idea of them grabbing him at 12. But the Texans taking him at 25, not a plug-and-play guy, and the Texans are a quarterback away right now.
Okay, first of all, the weather's been a little gloomy, little gray skies. And knowing Max, who's accustomed to Southern California or Las Vegas, you know, the sunshine, warm weather and all that stuff, you might be a little bit sick, the flu, little allergies, something like that. It might be that, or, you know, I just don't know. You forgot about no state income taxes in the state of Texas, and maybe that's the reason you're favoring the Texans. How in God's name could you sit up there and come up with the Houston Texans as much as they need a quarterback? How could you come up with them ahead of the Jets or the San Francisco 49ers? I know they need everything, but excuse me, who needs a quarterback more than San Francisco or the New York? Have I been watching? Have you been watching the same NFL that I've been watching? The New York Jets don't need a quarterback more than the Texans.
No, in fact,
Tom Savage could play as well as you, and he'd still be an improvement over the hell with the Jets have right now. You got to be crazy.
If the Jets had a quarterback right now, they wouldn't do anything with
That's not the point. That don't mean they don't need one.
It's the need.
The need.
Jets and the Niners are years away. And by the way, Cleveland, they're years away. You need a quarterback right this second now. Maybe you draft a guy who's not plug and play. I understand that. But the answer to the team who needs a quarterback right now, in other words, the team that's just missing a quarterback,
I'm telling Mel Kiper on you. I'm telling Mel Kiper on you because Mel Kiper told you you need a quarterback before you do anything, and you clearly wasn't listening to Mel Kiper when he busted quarterbacks on this show.
That's fair.
So hold up. You guys want,
they're ready to win if they had a quarterback.
Right. You guys think the team that needs a quarterback is the team that needs everything. And I'm saying the team that needs a quarterback is the team that got everything but a quarterback.
Right.
Who's right?
Thank you. They just like your haircut. That's all. Nobody listening to them. They ain't helping you. Go ahead, Donovan.
First of all, the Houston Texans, in this situation, I think Tom Savage can do the job. All he has to do is don't turn the football over, complete 62% of his passes, and the defense will be able to win games for him. They're in a terrible conference. They're in a terrible division. I think for me, when I look at what the Houston Texans have, and don't sleep on Tom Savage. Remember, Tom Savage was a guy that had upside coming into the draft when he came out. All of a sudden, McShay and all those guys were talking about him. Now, all of a sudden, we're acting like he's a bum. He's a good player, but you have to give him an opportunity.
Win a Super Bowl with him?
Listen,
the Texans are ready to win a Super Bowl.
The Texans are ready to win a Super Bowl.
If they had a quarterback,
they're not ready to win a Super Bowl.
What don't they have?
Even though J.J. Watt will be able to finish a full season. Now, all of a sudden,
they had the best defense without him.
Over the last 5-6 weeks.
Over the last 5-6 weeks.
Where were they the first 12 weeks?
Hold up. So you have the best defense without J.J. Watt, and you might get 80% of J.J. Watt back. You think they're going to get worse?
Did you see their schedule and the they played?
Look, first of all, stay off of Google. I told you.
Hold up. They got a running back. They got the wide out. They have an okay offensive line. They got a great
man, they
I like O'Brien, but when has he ever developed a quarterback?
Right, okay.
When has he ever developed a quarterback to be the quarterback that we expect?
That's a fair question.
Now, let's go to the Jets. The Jets need a quarterback, yes.
And San Francisco.
But San Francisco, more importantly, because we have a new coaching regime, we have a new GM, you have to start your franchise out with a quarterback that you can at least rely on for over a decade. Then you build around him.
And by the way, if you want to bring up a team, that's potentially there but could use a quarterback, I'd roll with Minnesota because I ain't sold on Sam Bradford and Teddy Bridgewater was out. How come you didn't bring them up? They got a better shot than Houston.
No, they don't.
But you have to have a quarterback. That's the whole thing. You have to have a quarterback.
But you're doing it backwards. Yes, every team needs a quarterback, so you can point to any team that doesn't have one and say they need one. I'm saying the team that most needs one is the team in the highest position of leverage, where that one position will make the difference between winning a Super Bowl and maybe not making the playoffs.
Let me ask you this, Max.
Of course the Jets need a quarterback. San Francisco does. Cleveland
What's the difference from a talent standpoint from what you've seen from the Houston Texans, from the Denver Broncos? If the Denver Broncos had a quarterback...
It's another good choice.
If the Denver
I'll give you the difference.
No one is complaining about Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch.
I'll give you the difference.
It's the same that's going on in Houston.
Okay.
What's the difference between Trevor Siemian and maybe even Tom Savage?
I got an answer for you. John Elway has already shown the ability as a GM to get that franchise to the Super Bowl.
That's with Peyton Manning.
Hold on. Yeah, but last time that wasn't Peyton Manning. They won a Super Bowl with a ghost of Peyton Manning.
Was the one taking snaps, if I
with
recall.
the remains
I
of
don't
Peyton
care if
Manning.
He completed 9 passes like Tim Tebow for 100-something passes. He won a Super Bowl.
Was it the offense or the defense that just won the Super Bowl?
It doesn't matter.
Peyton Manning was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league that year.
So you just answered the own question that you brought up.
Right.
So the reason the Houston Texans didn't win the Super Bowl is what? Because of the defense or the offense?
This is what I'm talking about, Donovan. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Elway, Broncos are a great choice. The difference is Elway has shown the ability to get to a Super Bowl with an offense without a defense, to win one with a defense without an offense. That's not the Texans. They don't have the same. They haven't been able to do it. So they need that quarterback.
How would you know what the hell the Texans are? They don't win, period. You don't know the reason.
Because they don't have a quarterback.
That's not the only reason.
No,
that's
not the only reason. They got Lamar Miller last year. The year before that, they didn't have much of a running game. Even when Watt was there and being the defensive player of the year, they had questions about their defense. He just brought up Bill O'Brien and how Bill O'Brien hasn't developed a quarterback. So what I'm saying to you is that it just seems to be a myriad of issues that invade the proceedings when it comes to the Houston Texans. And I'm saying to you, you're acting like, wait a minute, with a quarterback, they'd be straight butter. They played Indianapolis, they played Cincinnati, which was suspect. The Oakland Raiders without Derek Carter. They got all of these guys. Excuse me?
Was it butter or butter?
It doesn't matter.
Yo, Donovan.
Whatever works.
Donovan, they be stupid dope, yo. Yo, that would be the deafest team out. Straight butter.
But it's something that you said. I mean, I know you're talking about the Houston Texans, and I think they have what it takes to possibly win, at least get to the AFC Championship.
Right.
Now, Brock Osweiler could have led him to the AFC Championship if he didn't turn the football over against New England. But I will say this. What's the difference between the Denver Broncos? You had 2 defensive ends that could get to the quarterback. Plus, you had another one in Shane Ray that you spent a round on.
Let's rewind that. They could have
They could have got to the AFC Championship.
If they had a better.
I said if he protected the football.
If they had a better, you heard him say it, quarterback. Drop the mic.
But the defense.
Hold on.
Yeah, please.
You don't get to say that.
Right.
Oh, no.
Why? Because according to Max Kellerman, the Max Kellerman that I spoke to in the aftermath of conference championship games, he said that they win. No, they did not win. Did they go to the Super Bowl? No, they did not go to the Super Bowl. Every year somebody gets in the championship game. What does that mean? If you don't get to the Super Bowl, you didn't get it done. That's what you said. So now you're going to be in front of a live studio audience and just negate that you said that?
No, they didn't get it done because they did.
In other words, if it didn't mean anything months ago, it don't mean anything now. That's not a point to bring up, especially by you.
I thought the point was they didn't have a quarterback.
No, it's not just a quarterback.
This, right? That's the whole point.
I'm
they
with
couldn't
you, Max.
score the football.
Oh, come on now. Come on now.
I'm with you.
You ain't getting away with that.
By the way, we had a Freudian slip earlier. We went Jalen Adams rather than Jamal Adams. Of course, Jamal Adams, LSU, Jalen Adams,
the
UConn.
basketball player.
Happy you gave UConn a shout out.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have much more on the draft quarterbacks a little later in the show. We want you guys to weigh in. Who are you going, Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky? Get on Twitter, vote. We'll get into that a little bit later. Donovan will be back with us in just a moment. But up next, we're going to the hardcore. It's playoff time, folks. Mr. Triple-Double, Russell Westbrook, says OKC is where he wants to be. But first, I want to address something that is very important to all of us right here. It's a very dark time after several of our colleagues have been affected by ESPN layoffs. And I want to say these folks have done tremendous work contributing to make ESPN the brand that it is. And my heart also goes out not only to them, but to their families, their loved ones that are affected by this. And obviously, I want to hear your thoughts, guys.
Well, let me first say this. I've been working here since 2003. I'm honored to be a member of the ESPN family. My heart goes out to my colleagues out there who lost their jobs here at the company. They've spent years doing absolutely outstanding work, and they're responsible for what ESPN has become. And I think it's incredibly important that we all recognize that. But I also want America to recognize that a lot of these individuals that are gone are incredibly talented. Mm-hmm. And in the end, they will land on their feet because they're sensational at what they do. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with them. My heart goes out to them, but I'm incredibly confident that they will, they will resurrect their careers in some kind of capacity because ESPN has tremendous talent. We always have had. And those individuals that are gone, they will be back in some capacity, whether it's for this company or for somebody else, because they're too talented not to be.
A lot of excellent people and excellent professionals whose work product has been outstanding for so long. I concur.
No question. So they will be missed, but of course, looking forward to seeing them continue to shine on another platform very soon. But it is also, of course, playoff time, gentlemen, so we need to get into that. And we start with Russell Westbrook. And his Thunder may have gotten bounced in 5, but their short playoff run isn't deterring Russ from keeping his talents in OKC.
Everybody know that I like Oklahoma City and I love being here. And, you know, I love everybody here. But I haven't even thought about that. I'm worried about making sure my wife is all right and moving forward with that. Everything else really doesn't matter at this point. And that's the most important thing right now and me moving forward.
Very sweet. Stephen A., what do you make of Russell Westbrook's comments?
I don't think they were that wise. It's not to knock Russell Westbrook in any way. He's probably going to win league MVP. He averaged a triple-double. He's been sensational this year. There's no denying that. Here's where the issue gets interesting as it pertains to Russell Westbrook. You are playing for an organization with an executive named Sam Presti, who obviously is very well respected, but there have been flaws. Whether it's due to ownership and Clay Bennett and what he has demanded, or whether it has been to his judgment. Let's put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. On the same roster, Oklahoma City had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, and Reggie Jackson. At one point in time, all of them were on the squad together. None of them were over 23. Durant and Westbrook were 23. Ibaka and Harden were 22. Reggie Jackson was 21. This is when they went to the finals. And somehow, some way, Kevin Durant walks out the door.
For nothing.
James Harden, I want to put this in perspective. James Harden is gone over $4 million. Not $4 million a year. $4 million total. You lost out on James Harden. Over a billionaire didn't want to come up with $4 million. You got that. You trade Serge Ibaka. You acquire Victor Oladipo. That didn't really work out that much because Serge Ibaka's still playing and playing well, by the way. You look at the bevy of talent that you have as an organization. I have to question why all of them left or why all of them wanted to leave and you moved some and others left. And so I'm looking at Presti and I'm looking at Bennett, the owner, and I'm saying if I were playing for an organization that lost that level of talent, I might want to stay, Max. I really might still want to stay. I'll be damned if I'm telling you. I'm going to keep that to myself because I need to see what you're going to do. Are you going to sit up here and exhaust me, don't even have the decency to surround me with shooters? Are you going to max me out prematurely where my career is cut short because I'm only human? I can't do every year what I did this year, averaging a triple-double. I'm not saying Russell Westbrook shouldn't feel the way they feel because you want to be where you want to be. I'm just saying you got to exercise business sense sometimes and know when to keep stuff to yourself and just chill just to see what they're going to do rather than giving them the cushion of being able to say, well, he said he wanted to stay, so I don't really have to prioritize getting him that elite talent and chasing the championship. I could just be respectable and compete.
You got to incentivize them to put some talent around you. First of all, I'm going to make a point right now that you made yesterday, since you just made a point that I've been making for a while. I mean, that Oklahoma City team is going to go down, I think, as the most talented team in the history of American team sports to never win a championship. That should have been a dynasty. You have 3 MVP caliber players eventually who are already excellent in Durant and Westbrook and Harden, plus another perennial all-star caliber talent in Serge Ibaka. And you mentioned Reggie Jackson. All on the same team in their early 20s, and you make one finals and let them all walk out the door. I've been saying that for a while. I want to bring up a point you made yesterday, I think it was. It's Clay Bennett. When you look at the issue here, a robber, the owner, a robber baron, or an oil baron, excuse me, Freudian slip, an oil baron who stole the team from Seattle. And what do you have going for you if you're Oklahoma City? It's not the market that's going to attract people. It's a small town. It's not New York or L.A. or Miami or a place like that. It's not a big, sexy market. What you have is the ability to pay more than the other teams if you're willing to pay a luxury tax. The way the NBA is set up, it's that if a small market is willing to spend money, they can keep the team together because these guys can make more money there than elsewhere. And he has been unwilling to do it. He's cheap. And because he's cheap, Oklahoma City doesn't have a squad. So when Russell Westbrook comes out and says, this is where I want to be, to me, Stephen A., that doesn't cost him anything. He didn't come out and say, I guarantee you I'm never going to leave Oklahoma City. He said, this is where I want to be, and I believe he's telling the truth. Now, the fact that in a couple years, I believe he's going to want to get out to L.A. or someplace like that.
It should be L.A. or New York.
Right. It's because the owner's cheap. It's a bad owner. An excellent GM in Sam Presti, the mistakes notwithstanding, because Presti didn't get any shooters for him this year, but when you look at the talent Presti's identified, it's amazing. But a cheap and bad owner, and therefore a bad place for Russell Westbrook in the long run.
Important point to point out here. We all know that I'm absolutely disgusted that the superstar that is Kevin Durant decided to go to a 73-9 team and jump on that gravy train. That ticks me off. But having said all of that, let me say this. Here is a moment where we have to be fair to Kevin Durant and possibly let him off the hook in this regard. So much has been made about what the relationship was with Russell Westbrook. That's Kevin Durant's fault because you never called him and went to see him to say goodbye. And you brought that shrapnel of criticism in your direction because you brought up that skepticism by handling it the way that you handled it. But the interesting part about Kevin Durant is now we have to sit here and say, Sam Presti, Clay Bennett, how much did you have to do with Kevin Durant walking out the door? Because if we're sitting here and noticing that Harden and Ibaka and Jackson and others are gone, could you imagine what Kevin Durant noticed? These are the kind of things that we have to pay attention to, because in Golden State, we have a situation where Joe Lacob and those boys, Steph Curry ain't going nowhere, Klay Thompson ain't going nowhere, Draymond Green ain't going nowhere.
It looks like a wise move.
The fact of the matter is, if you're an owner of an NBA team, a lot of times that's a vanity play. In other words, you're not always going to try to optimize your profits every year because, first of all, the equity, the whole league becomes more valuable. So your franchise, these guys buy it for a couple $100 million, sell it for a couple billion. That's happening. And also, for some, it's a vanity play. They're rich guys. This is their toy. They get to have a toy. Clay Bennett is treating the Oklahoma City Thunder primarily as a business. Now, you may say there's nothing wrong with that. It's his right to optimize profits, too. Well, that's fine. But when you're being compared to other owners, you know, and I bring up Dan Gilbert, and I don't think he's a very good owner, but you're right, he is at least willing to pay the luxury tax in Cleveland. You're being compared to other owners who are willing sometimes to not optimize profits that year in order to give that town a winner because they know in the long run they're going to sell for multiples of what they bought it for. That makes you, relative to the other owners, a bad owner.
Here's a simpler way of putting it. You have some owners who really, really want to win championships. And you have some owners where it would be nice, but what I really want to do is just be in the picture while also monitoring my dollars. If I'm competing every year, even if I don't win, I'm in the argument. Therefore, I've satisfied my constituency, my fan base.
I sell out the arena every night.
Real quick, because we have to go to break, though. But on that point you just made, how about Russell Westbrook? Does that at all make you think him wanting to stay, that he doesn't necessarily care that much about a championship?
Well, here's the deal. What Russell Westbrook eventually is going to be forced to look in the mirror about is, you do, first of all, no one would ever question his effort.
We know his heart.
It is heart.
Of course.
But you do have people who believe he prioritizes numbers as well as everything else. So now that you've accomplished league MVP, because he's going to win that, and you was a scoring champion and all of this other stuff, what else is there left to do individually? At some point in time, we're going to sit up there and say to Russell Westbrook, all right, bro, now it's time to win.
Look,
don't ask him that.
Oscar Robertson, one of the greatest players ever, didn't get a chip until Kareem showed up and he got one. You know, I mean,
but he doesn't want to be in that conversation.
Russell Westbrook had Kevin Durant for 8 years.
Yep, that's true. There's no doubt about it.
All right.
We'll take a break from basketball. When we come back, of course, we're in Philly for the NFL draft. The Eagles found the quarterback of the future last season after taking Carson Wentz with the second overall pick. So what can we expect from Philly in the NFC East? And Booger McFarland has strong comments regarding some of the controversial figures in tonight's draft. First take on the road in Philly.